Driving on stormy nights can become so difficult that you may wish you had the eyes of a night creature, like an owl or a tarsier. What's a tarsier? Well, it's like a... Look, it doesn't matter. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades reduce blur and glare, clearing away rain, so you can drive even better than a tarsier, whatever that is. Night vision has evolved. Bosch Night Performance Wiper Blades.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
FunBelt Podcast.
It's just a great conference that is at a point right now where I think clearly the best group of five conference in the country.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
And we got to continue to showcase what our league's about.
This league is insane.
Yeah, it might be like one of those 8 wonders of the world.
And you can see just what a great group of five conference it really is.
It's a big deal.
Boy, life is looking pretty good in the Sun Belt these days.
Before we bring everybody in for tonight's show, want to recap the Sunbelt Conference Championship media availability with first Appalachian State's Shawn Clark, followed by Billy Napier, talking about their teams and what it is like for them to be back in this Sunbelt Conference Championship game.
And how big is it, and how much does it mean to you and your kids to get back to the championship game after missing out last year?
It's big. This is the third time it's been played, and it's been us in Louisiana the whole time. And I think it's big. Anytime you can have a chance to play for championships, and that's what we sell in our programs, get a world-class degree and play for championships. I think it's big for recruiting. It's big for us to go on the big stage of ESPN. And I think it's great for our whole university as a whole.
Coach, your team's given up only 31 points in the last 4 games combined. Was there a switch that flipped, or was it something there were some changes somewhere along the line, or did you guys just start doing things better?
Well, I think if you look at our whole body of work on defense, if you take out one game from the season, we played at a high level all year long. And after the Louisiana game, we came back and regrouped, and we didn't coach well that game. We didn't play well that game. And we went back to keeping things a little bit more simpler. And I don't think you can ever you have to be able to call a sound defense that your guys can execute. Probably the biggest thing we've done, we're really rallying to the football. We're getting 11 hats to the ball, and we're playing fast right now. I think if you turn the tape on from the last 4 or 5 games, I think our team speed has really shown. That has given us a chance to be successful.
Coaches trying to always find a way to motivate their teams, but do you really need to use that because you can just pop that tape on?
No, our players know that we didn't play well. Our coaches know we didn't coach well. I always say that, coaches lose games and players win games. But again, we're treating this like any other game. And it is a championship game, but it's about being 1-0. And we talk about that here all the time. It's been 1-0, and we'll keep a normal schedule. Today's an off day for us. We'll come back, have 2 tough practices, a walkthrough on Thursday, and we'll travel Friday.
You've been at App for a while in different roles, and for this program to have won 10 games, 5 of the last 7 seasons. What do you kind of see as the reason for that kind of sustained success through different coaches?
I think it goes back to tradition. I think if you look at our body of work for the last 30 years, we have a lot of tradition. We've won a lot of championships, and our kids know how to prepare. And I think the coaching part of us we've had some great football coaches here, but more importantly, we've had some great football players And I think that's part of it. But to win that many games, I think it speaks volumes for the support you have from your administration. And I think Chancellor Everts and Doug Gill, our athletic director, they've given us everything we have to be successful. Now we have to go out and put it on the field and put a great product on the football field.
You've obviously gone up against Coach Napier over at Louisiana before. What are kind of the hallmarks of his program and what he's been able to do there?
Well, a lot of credit goes to Coach and his staff. And if you look at from the first year he was here to now, it's night and day. I think he's established what he wants done with his program. I think the biggest thing is their toughness. I mean, they have really gotten better in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. Their team speed on the outside, it really creates some mismatches for you. But just really to watch him evolve. I was an assistant coach when he was the head coach there, and to where they are now compared to where they were 4 years ago, it's a totally different program. And he's going to be successful wherever he goes, and we wish him the best of luck.
How much has Louisiana changed and evolved and improved since you saw them last?
Well, I think they're always improving. I think the one great sign of a great program is they're not trying to reinvent the wheel every single week. They give you different shifts and motions and a different something on defense, but for their core it's not going to change. And they're executing at a high level. They have all year long. I mean, you go back to went back to the Texas game and watched the Monroe game, and they got great players. And I think that's a credit to him and how he's recruited there. But that's probably for us. And we're not going to change of what we do. We have a couple of run plays, a couple of pass concepts, and we try to execute at a high level. And I think they're doing the same thing at Louisiana.
Chase Bryce, has he exceeded your expectations this year, or is this what you envisioned when you brought him in?
That's what we envisioned. And again, when we recruited Chase from Duke, that's when during the pandemic, and he was not allowed on campus. So our in-home visit was just like this right here with his parents, and talking to people on Duke staff, they spoke highly of him, people we trusted and inside the program. And when he came here, just his leadership, his willing to learn our offense, learn our culture, learn our system. He really dove into the playbook, and from week after week 2 or 3, we opened the whole playbook up to him, and just the people they gravitate to him. Our players do, and he's a team first guy. I think that you have to have that as a quarterback at any level, I believe, and it's about the team first. And he'd rather give up his individual stats for a team victory any day.
Back to Napier for a second, kind of on the flip side for you guys in your defense, how will it be impacted by, kind of his play calling tendencies and his tendency for especially aggressiveness on 4th downs?
To answer your question, I mean, we're going to play our defense, so we can't reinvent the wheel. And he's kind of like us here at Appalachian State, that they give you 4 downs for a reason, so you might as well use them. And I think with the analytics of college football now today, it's about scoring touchdowns and not field goals. And that's something that we look into on a weekly basis of, what's our strengths, what's the defense's weaknesses to go for it on 4th down. But, he's going to run what he runs, and that's why he's one of the best play callers in college football, is because they do it better than everybody else, and they have the players to do that, and they execute. And you watch their tape, there's not many missed assignments or bad play calling. It's about execution.
Championship week is here. We're extremely proud of our football team, our players, our staff, our entire organization. You start back in January, working hard in this process, to position yourself and be relevant when you get to the end of the season, to win your division, to create an opportunity to play for a championship. And certainly we've done that. And I think that is, there's a lot of people that have contributed to that. And I'm proud to be associated with this group. I think that we have a tremendous amount of respect for Appalachian State, a very formidable opponent, one that we're very familiar with, and certainly have a ton of respect for how they play football. Their identity on offense, defense, and special teams, the effort, the toughness, really a lot of respect, for how they go about their business. So this will be a great challenge and one that we're looking forward to.
Why was coaching in the championship game as important to you as it obviously is, even in a time of transition? And have you made a decision yet regarding the bowl?
No, I think, the bowl game will be to be determined. I mean, I really, there was no question regarding coaching in the conference championship game. I mean, that was non-negotiable. And I think that it's also important for everyone to realize the commitment that we've made to the players here and the staff here to really kind of take a singular focus on trying to do the best job we can do for this team, in our preparation this week. There's there's never a doubt that we were going to coach in the game. And certainly even now, we tried to get the announcement out of the way yesterday, but we'll have a total focus this week on the conference championship game. And then when we're done here Saturday, we'll move forward and, start working on the challenges that are ahead of us.
There is obviously a game to play this week. You have already played App State once. What do you take away from that game, and what are the challenges of playing somebody twice in 1 year?
Yeah, I do. Heck, twice in 1 year. I think it's 7 times in 4 years or something like that. So, I think that the key here is that we understand that nothing happened in that game is going to affect this one. We're going to have to go earn the right to win with what we do and how we play on Saturday. Our detail, our urgency, our ability to execute the discipline in which we play. And certainly we've got to produce and we've got to execute at a high level. So I think we understand the challenge that comes with playing against an Appalachian State team, and we respect that. And I think that's a good thing because our team will know what's required throughout the week. I think the big thing here is that we don't get too consumed with Saturday and we focus on what we need to do each day, right? I think we've got to be very intentional about the approach we take in the meetings and the walkthrough. We got to be very deliberate at practice. And I think that we've got to live life with self-discipline this week and try to position ourselves so we can play with confidence. I think preparation, really good preparation, creates confidence, and that's where we're going to spend our time.
Billy, how much, if any, has App State changed since you played them the last time, especially on defense?
I do think there are some minor adjustments, if that makes sense. I think that's a good question. One thing about Appalachian State is they know who they are, right? I think they've been very consistent in performance, not only this year, but just as a whole, right? And I think their head coach and coordinators have a significant experience there, right? They've got a blueprint, it works. So I don't think they're too far off from what they've always done. They pride themselves on great execution. They're really fundamentally sound. They play with effort. They've got great team speed on defense, and they try to position the players to have success. So I see a few tweaks here and there, but for the most part, I think they know who they are. More about execution to them than, maybe making wholesale changes each week or as the season goes.
Well, we heard the coaches speak about the Sunbelt Conference Championship game. Now it's our turn for our take. Welcome in to the FunBelt Podcast, Dusty Thibodeau from Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper from Hal Razor, Ben Moore from Panther Talk, and then, of course, the team squaring off, got to be represented as well. We have Tyler from Tapped In Sports, as well as Jay Walker, the voice of the Ragin Cajuns. Welcome in, everybody.
Thanks, Dusty. Appreciate it, man.
So let's start with the challenger, if we should say. Appalachian State makes the return trip to Cajun Field this weekend. It did not go very well at all during the regular season. And I know everyone's going to try to make a lot to do about, the Cajuns won in the regular season, and they're a shoe-in to win this championship game. The coaches themselves said that both teams have really matured and changed a lot from that time. What's your take there, Tyler, on what we can expect and kind of what we learned, if anything, from that game?
Well, that was a game where App State just absolutely got humbled from the onset of that game. It was one of those where it seemed like anything that could go wrong went wrong. And, you find yourself down 20-3, I think it was, to a team like Louisiana, and it's going to be hard to come back from that. And that defense was able to pin its ears back and just come after Chase Bryce at will. He got happy feet there And anytime you got 4 turnovers in a football game, it's going to be hard to win it. So, I think it was a good wake-up call for App State. I think since then we have played really balanced football. You saw us knock off Coastal at home in a game that really was worse than the score indicated, I thought. And then we put the beat down on some teams. Now, there's been times where we still haven't put a full game together, I don't think, yet. We've played good halves of football. But it is absolutely going to take our best full game against Louisiana this weekend. So,
well, you did see that it does look like the Mountaineers sort of shook off or put on their business suits after that game with the Cajuns and just start wrecking through the league. Jay, I have a question for you. Aside from that crippling beating that you delivered to the Mountaineers, and then a sort of a similar beating that you delivered to Liberty later on, this Cajuns team seems to be known for just sort of doing the bare minimum to win, including a 1-score win against Arkansas State. I got to witness that in person. What is with these Cajuns? Are they just sort of rope-a-doping us? Or is there something missing in the ingredients that the Mountaineers can exploit?
Well, first of all, if you expected the Arkansas State-Louisiana game to be a blowout, then you haven't paid any attention to the history between the two teams. We knew that was going to be a one-possession game.
Listen, now, Jay, I've seen that Red Wolves play all season long.
But it's great. But dude, it's the Red Wolves and the Cajuns. Come on, you know what it's going to be about.
That's true. That's true.
It did. Now I will say this: a 20-play, 90-yard drive that takes 10.5 minutes off the clock to end the game. I don't care what the score was. That was pretty dominating right there. But you're right. I think that there are some games that we've been better than others when we've played. I've never been a style points guy. I mean, I went through a 5-year period where this program was 9-45-1. So I do not complain when the Cajuns win. Liberty and Arkansas State were interesting, but Liberty and Arkansas State, the Cajuns just in those two games were +9 in turnovers, +8. I'm sorry. So, turnover margin is still the most important statistic in college football. And that hasn't changed regardless of how the game itself may have changed. That statistic is still the biggest one. The impressive thing about when the Cajuns played App State, and I realize Cameron Peoples didn't play that night, okay, but Nate Noel still led this league in rushing. And App State had 78 net yards rushing in the game. If you're going to stop App State from running the football, you're going to have a very good chance to beat them. And although Bryce is a very good quarterback, look, I've said it all year long. People talk about, well, Levi did this or Levi didn't do that. Oh, you got a 3-headed monster at running back. Let me tell you something. Cajuns have a very good defense. And there is no part of that defense that I look at and I say, well, this part of our defense isn't very good. We had guys in the secondary who covered their receivers. We had guys up front that kept them from running the football. And Bryce, as a result, has 133 yards passing. They barely had 200 yards of offense. And it's because this team went out and played their best defensive game of the year. Now, they've been good defensively darn near every game this season. All you have to do is go back and they've allowed 30 points once all season long. And that was the thing that was impressive to me. No, App didn't play very well. And there was no way any of us expected the score to be what it was. But am I surprised the Cajuns won the game? Not really. I think that last year when they were able to get out of Boone with a win, I think they showed themselves something. And I think they were a confident bunch when App State came in. They're going to be a confident bunch again Saturday. But if anybody thinks it's going to be a 41-14 game, I got news for you. That ain't going to happen.
Tyler, with all that said, though, how do you see the Cajuns being able to beat Appalachian State? And then the flip side of that, Jay, afterwards is how do you see the Cajuns? Like, what would have to go wrong for the Cajuns to lose this game?
Well, I think, first of all, when you get on the wrong side of the turnover margin, you have a chance to lose the football game. That's the first thing. Okay. Turnover margin is still going to be big. Let's suppose neither team turns it over. I think if the Cajuns are going to win the football game, they've got to do the same thing they did last time. You've got to slow down the running game. I don't care how good Chase Bryce is, and he's good. And I think as far as a quarterback that can sling it all over the ballpark, he's better than the guy that they had the last 4 years in that regard. But if they can't run the football, they're going to have a hell of a time winning. And so the thing that the Cajuns have to do is slow down the running game. Going to be easier said than done, because I'll tell you, that App State running game, ever since they've been in the league, has impressed the hell out of me. And you're going to have to slow down the running game if you're going to win. If they have success running the football, it could be a long afternoon.
Well, and to kind of piggyback off what Jay's saying, I think the formula is the same for us as well. If we allow Louisiana to run the ball the way they did, I think, 246 rushing yards, I think, in the first matchup, that opens up Pandora's box, because, when Louisiana's backs are running the way they did in that first game, then you open up Levi Lewis to run the ball. And, that just adds in a whole new dynamic that you've got to try and stop. So,
and the other thing was, Levi came out in the first quarter and had maybe the best first quarter of his entire season. He came out and you look at Levi's numbers, he was 15 of 25, 179, a touchdown and a pick. But he came out and really engineered 3 scoring drives the first 3 times they had the ball. And once Levi did that, then the Cajuns were going to have success running it. And they did.
Well, and he also hit a few home run balls.
He did. And I'll tell you, I was on one of the radio stations here this morning. They asked the key to the game. And I mentioned the turnover battle, but the other thing is, don't give up the big play. I think App State had 3 plays 10 yards or more. The last time the two teams played, they had 1 rush for over 10 yards and a couple of receptions, and their biggest gain of the night was 19 yards. Now, a big play is usually the definition is 20 yards or more. So that means there were no big plays out of the App State offense. And App State and the Cajuns are both teams that can hit the big play and then make you pay for allowing it. And that was the other thing the Cajuns were able to do. Look, it's not going to be a 41-14 game. And I'll say this, the broadcasters sign contracts that say that you will not bet on college football. And I've never bet on a college football game in my life. But the under 53 looks really good in this game, I'm telling you.
Hey, I had a question specifically about this week, and we know we talked a little bit about it off the air there. Obviously, Billy Napier, this will be the last game that he coaches for the Cajuns. He's moving on to the University of Florida. With so many seniors, with so much leadership on this team, the issue always comes up, right? Is it going to be a distraction? Is it going to be taking away from preparation? Are guys going to be locked in? What's kind of been the conversation point this week so far that you've heard, and obviously since the news broke that he is going to Florida?
Well, it would have been worse if the speculation had continued and no announcement had been made. All right. He was able to get with his players on Sunday, tell them what was going on, talk to players individually if they wanted to be talked to individually, and then said, when this meeting's over, we're going back to work. And one of the things I like about this Cajun team is I like the leadership from the student athletes. I'll say this. I only remember two other leaders that this program's had that's been comparable to Levi Lewis. One of them played for the Carolina Panthers for quite a few years, in Jake Delhomme. And the other one is the co-offensive coordinator of the Cajuns now, and Mike Desermo. Levi's had been an amazing leader. He hasn't been the only one, but he's exerted leadership qualities, and it doesn't take him long to get a hold of a locker room. So I think the fact that it's his last game, I think might galvanize this team even more, because you want to win a conference championship. By the way, the last time the Cajuns won an outright conference championship was in the Gulf States Conference in 1968. Okay.
Were you there for that one, Jay?
I was not. As a matter of fact, I was not yet a resident of the state of Louisiana. I was, however, alive. So I think that now they go really focused, because that not only do they want to win a conference championship, but they want to send Billy out a winner. And so I don't think distractions are part of this week. If the Cajuns lose the game, it's going to be because App State was better on Saturday.
Tyler, do we have your audio? Are you up?
I hope so.
Oh, okay, good. I have a question for you. So,
okay,
so throughout this, actually through most of the season, we've heard a lot of talk about where Napier's going, if Napier's going, and if he goes somewhere where he's just. Meanwhile, Shawn Clark just kind of doing his business down in Boone, winning more games as usual, and running a ship as tight as any ship you're going to see in college football. Why are we seeing this sort of national attention with Clark as we saw with Napier?
I think Clark's, background as an offensive line coach does not speak flashy hire. And he's not a flashy guy. I mean, he's very soft-spoken. You get the same coach speak out of him pretty much every week. He's honestly kind of annoying to listen to in a press conference. But, he's just not a guy that's going to want the national spotlight. And, I think locally there could potentially be some programs here in the next few years that might take a look at him. There's been the rumors of Duke and, schools like that. But the guy is a Mountaineer through and through. And it's going to take something absolutely crazy, I think, to get him out of there. And he even spoke to it in his opening press conference when he was named head coach, that they're basically going to have to kick him out of there. So am I naive to think that if the right paycheck comes along, he's not going to jump ship? No. But, he's just going to keep his steadiness going. So hopefully that's for a while to come. I'm tired of the coaching searches. I'm happy it's somebody else for now.
So I had one more question too before we moved on to another question. Was that I heard that Bryce is coming back for another season. If you can confirm that for me, that would be great. And two, what does that mean for the team? It seems like that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so that's been a rumor for the last couple of weeks, but actually the coach actually confirmed it on XM Radio this morning. I forget the name of the show that he was on. But, the cupboard was going to be kind of empty at quarterback if Bryce did not come back. We've got a pretty good recruit coming in, and Ryan Berger from Myrtle Beach High School. We kind of stole him from the Chickens, but, he was going to need a year to sit, in all honesty. So Bryce coming back for us is going to be huge. I mean, we open up with North Carolina at home, at Texas A&M, and at Marshall to start the year. So you need that veteran presence to kind of, be able to run through that when you're losing 28 seniors.
So you mentioned that with Bryce Chase not coming back, that the cupboard was going to be kind of bare. Every conference championship game that's been played, I give you that one, Jay, with the asterisk, has been Appalachian State versus the Cajuns.
Yeah, and that's why I was a little curious when you said we're going to talk to the challenger, and then you talk to Tyler, okay? All they do is win conference championships. All they do.
But with that said, though, I mean, it's been a consistent matchup year after year after year after year. It makes me think back to the SEC when it used to be Florida and Bama every year, and it kind of got repetitive, but those were the two hottest teams of the league, just like this is here. But what do you think it is that's really helped kind of sustain that fire on both teams, that they can be the divisional champs and hopefully spread a little love and get one in South Louisiana for a championship game there?
Well, first of all, I think right now, now that the season's over, I can say I think you got about 3.5 good football teams in this league.
You told us that before.
I think Georgia State is very, very close, but it is still App State, Coastal, and the Cajuns, and with no disrespect intended, because I disrespect them on purpose enough. How good is Coastal without Grayson McCall? I mean, I still think they're good, but I don't think they're better than Georgia State. They've got
playing the nation's worst schedule.
They've got
dead last.
They got a dynamic quarterback that can cover up a lot of sins and is capable of making chicken salad out of chicken feathers. So I don't mean to disrespect the program when I say that. I'm just asking the question. If they don't have Grayson McCall, how good are they? Well, they didn't have Grayson McCall the last time we went to Conway, and we beat them like 48-6. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know if Coastal Carolina is going to sustain the excellence that they've had once this guy is gone, unless they do some serious recruiting. And they too are losing a bunch of people off this team this year. But look, the rest of this league, Georgia Southern had a bad year this year. Troy was kind of mediocre. Texas State was a little better. South Alabama was better at home. ULM was better at home. Arkansas State had a really tough year the first year under Butch Jones. If you don't want it to be the Cajuns and Mountaineers every year, the rest of this league better get better, because I don't think that the Cajuns and Mountaineers are going to get a lot worse. So if you don't want the Cajuns and Mountaineers to be in the championship game, get better.
Both of them do come to ULM next year.
I'm sorry?
Both of them do come to ULM next year. So we will see if that analysis holds true.
Unrow magic.
Well, and Dusty, one thing I want to add, it's the culture thing is cliche in football, but when you look at App State and Louisiana, those two programs have been the most steady in terms of coaching, I think, and establishing that winning culture. Whereas some of the other programs have bounced coaches around like popcorn. Even when App State has lost a coach, they've replaced it with a guy with a similar philosophy, similar style of play. And just that continuity, I think, is the biggest reason why we have kept winning. People in Boone always like to say, well, it's a player-led culture and a player-led team. And, I think there's a lot to that. And guys keep each other accountable for things. And, I'm not saying that doesn't happen at the ULMs or the South Alabamas or whatnot, but it just seems like it's happened at a higher level lately at App State and at Louisiana.
Louisiana also, the cupboard was not bare when Billy Napier got here. Okay. They had played in 5 bowl games in 7 years. And what do Robert Hunt and Kevin Dotson and Elijah McGuire and Elijah Mitchell and Trey Regis, what do all those guys have in common? They were all recruited by Mark Hudspeth. And so there was talent on this roster. It needed to be corralled. It needed to have a focus. And it is something that, the term that Billy has used since he got here, and you used it a minute ago, the culture. He wanted to develop a culture of doing things the right way, paying attention to detail every single day. The other thing he always stresses is being a good teammate. The Cajuns under Billy Napier have had tremendous chemistry, because if they've had somebody who was an issue, he didn't stay. And so he's got guys that are all on the same page. But that's part of the culture with the capital UL that they've been stressing since Billy's got there. But doggone it, they had some talent when he walked in the door. And you've got a handful of them playing now in the NFL.
My question's for Tyler with the upcoming game coming, with the big championship game coming to all the way. You have to travel all the way down to Louisiana. How big of a crowd do you expect from Appalachia State coming?
Somebody asked me this today, and quite frankly, it's going to be kind of hard to gauge until game day. I've not seen a lot of traffic on social media of people saying they're going to the game, aside from our usual people down that way that go. The last couple of years when Louisiana has come to Boone, they brought 1,000 or so, and I think that's probably what we're looking at for us. I mean, you've got families like me that have to decide, is it championship game or is it bowl game?
Yeah.
And, so it makes it hard this time of year. I lean bowl game because I have a 2-year-old. So if we're in Orlando, then I know where I'm going to be.
That makes sense. But I feel like, guys, and maybe I'm just got the Sunbelt halo on right now, but I feel like this championship game is better than any bowl game that we could have this season. I really feel like this game with this matchup is more appetizing than any Georgia State versus Akron game that we're going to see, or whatever we're going to see in the bowl game universe.
No, this is a good warm up or good teaser, but there's some projected really good bowl games out there that I know I'd like to see, most notably in New Orleans. The Cajuns and Marshall, I think, would be fantastic, and probably what we'll have Jay back on in the future to preview that Sunbelt Conference.
Why are you ruining my storyline, man? I was pumping up this game.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
I think that, by the way, just to put things in perspective, I did get a count. Appalachian State was given 500 tickets for the game, not counting the 300 for the player pass list. Okay. So they've got 800 to sell. And then of course there's plenty of room in Cajun Field after that, because the place will hold 41,000 if you pack them in. But no, I'm with you. And I think part of that is Dusty's been to Lafayette multiple times. It's fun in Lafayette on game day when a big crowd is there. And because it's the championship game, I can guarantee you that the university is going to pull out all the stops to make it a show. And so I'm not excited, to be honest with you, about a bowl game against Marshall, because Marshall's about to be in our league. We're getting ready to play them on a fairly regular basis. The one game bowl projection that I saw, and there was only one that made me say, okay, I'll take that. A little luster came off last week, but I'm totally okay with a rematch against UTSA. We played them in a bowl last year. It was a 1-score game. They were undefeated until last week. So if they beat Western Kentucky on Saturday, then both of these teams are going to be 12-1. And I think New Orleans would love to have a couple of 12-1 teams at the Caesars Superdome. I think that would be very cool. I'd love to play Marshall if they were staying in Conference USA, but they're not. They're our brothers now, and I don't want to play my brother in a bowl game.
Just to polish up one thing on that question, as a high school teacher, over 60% of our alumni are teachers, and we travel well locally. We usually don't travel that well when you got to get on a plane.
We're the same way.
So, it's just one of those things where I wish we could take 10,000 people down there and help fill up Cajun Field, because that atmosphere would just be tremendous. But realistically, you couple it with the time of year, I just don't know how many we'll have down there. But I fully expect the Cajuns to uphold their end of the bargain this time. And, it's not a Tuesday night. So
no,
that place ought to be rocking pretty good.
If you go and look at the records at Cajun Field as far as attendance are concerned, the biggest attended game that didn't have a boatload of visitors is right at 30,000 in the game against, of all people, FIU several years ago. The other games, 41,000 plus with Southern, and 36 with Southern, and 33 with Grambling, and 35 with McNeese, and 38 with Texas A&M, and 36 with Alabama. And yes, Alabama did come to Cajun Field. You had 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, and in the case of Southern, maybe 12,000 visiting fans. So if the Cajuns get over 30,000 and App State only brings 1,000 folks or so, that's going to be as big a crowd as they've ever had at Cajun Field as far as locals are concerned. Billy said last night he'd be disappointed if the place wasn't packed. Well, I don't know if it gets packed without help from the visiting team. I will say this: ticket sales are going very, very well. Their reserved seating is almost gone. And general admission sales have been brisk. So I think they've got a chance to crack 30 to 35,000 for this game. And if so, I'll be very, very happy.
So we know who everyone's going to pick for the game. So I'm going to put a different spin on it. Who is your pick for MVP of the game? Tyler, I'll start with you.
Oh, man. Well, I'm going with us winning on a field goal to end it, if that was a big shocker to anybody. But, I think if we're going to win this game, it's going to have to be with us competing on the ground. Cam Peoples has been getting fewer carries than normal. I think saving him up for kind of this stretch run, championship game, bowl game. I think he's going to get a heavy dose of carries come Saturday. The guy's got, I think it's over 15 touchdowns on the year, and he is hard to bring down. So, if App State's going to come out on top, it's going to be because Cam Peoples had a hell of a day.
Jay, who's your MVP?
First of all, I agree with what Tyler just said. I think if App State wins the game, whoever leads them in rushing is going to be the MVP, whether it's Cameron or whether it's Nate Noel. But so I agree with that. If the Cajuns win the game, it's going to be on the shoulders of number one. The guy has had an amazing career. He's 32-5 as the starting quarterback the last 3 years. He has thrown more touchdown passes than anyone in the history of Louisiana football. And all he does is win. And sometimes he didn't look very good doing it, but all he does is win. And so I think if the Cajuns win the game, I think Levi Lewis will be your MVP.
Looking forward to it. 2:30 on Saturday on ESPN. We are looking forward to watching the culmination of the season, hoping next year it'll be our teams in there, but not in Lafayette. We want it at our stadium. Jay, Tyler, thank y'all so very much for joining us. Can't thank you enough for taking time out, and look forward to possibly seeing y'all on Saturday.
Thanks so much for having us. We like to talk football. We like to talk Sunbelt, and I appreciate these casts that you guys are doing, because everybody in the league is getting highlighted and talked about. And honestly, listening to them, I'm learning more about the schools that are in our league, especially those that haven't been in there for a very, very long time. So I appreciate what you guys do. Thank you very much.
You hear that, boys? We got one listener.
Yeah, thanks, Dusty, for having me on. I kind of like what Jay said. I think we, as a conference, are usually pretty good about building each other up. I've seen some other conferences where it's just all hate, no love, and I think most of us genuinely like seeing the other Sunbelt schools succeed when they're not playing each other. So, appreciate what you guys do, and it was a pleasure being on here with you.
So, guys, we're at the end of the season. The coaches have given their talks. We've talked with the experts there for their various teams. Now it's our turn. It's just the FunBelt Podcast time.
It's just
so,
us.
Ben, give us the breakdown of how you see Saturday going for this Sunbelt Conference Championship.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not a blowout, and I agree with what Jay said. Turnovers certainly, make things different. In that first matchup, there's 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. The biggest thing that jumped out to me specifically, not even just the turnovers, but a very un-App State-like. They were 0 for on third down. Literally didn't have a third down conversion all night in that game, and that's not something we're used to seeing. Certainly with a solid running game. Jay and Tyler both hit it, that if this team can run the ball, they can be in the game. But I like the Cajuns. I really do. I think they have an opportunity to certainly, it is a legacy moment for Levi Lewis. And to that record was just astounding, 32-5. And all the kid does is win. With everything kind of swirling on the outside with all the distractions and Billy Napier, it would certainly be a cherry on the sundae for his career in Lafayette to grab that championship specifically at home. And as we talked about, there will be a pronounced home field advantage for the Cajuns. And I think they will be revved up at Cajun Field. And I like the Cajuns by maybe 6, I'll say. I think they take care of business there, although App State does make it close.
Yeah. I think that home field advantage is pretty good for the Cajuns right now. That's kind of one of the reasons why I asked Tyler if they were gonna bring some people down to sort of even that out. It doesn't look like that's gonna happen. But it's kind of funny is that both teams have distinctive styles. We kind of made fun of with Jay about how the Cajuns sort of just sort of play just good enough to win the game. They've got all these 1-score wins and they sort of tear your heart out at the end. Appalachian State has a different kind of style, and that style is they kind of play close for the first half and then suddenly blow you out in the second half. It's like they're taking notes for the first half, and the second half they apply those notes to execution and just whip you. I have a feeling that Appalachian State actually learned their lesson in their first game against the Cajuns. I still feel like Appalachian State's a better team than the Cajuns. They just seem to have everything that a team needs to win. And the Cajuns just seem to be roll that dice a little bit too often. They just seem to play a little bit close to the vest too much. I'm going to give the edge to Appalachian State this time. I think they learned their lesson.
I think that this is another ho-hum performance by the Ragin Cajuns, like we've seen all season long, but they do just enough to get it won. Is that a 1-score touchdown, field goal, maybe a 10-point? I definitely do not see it being a blowout. But I think Napier closes out his career in the Sunbelt and at Louisiana-Lafayette with the good old dub. First conference championship, as Jay Walker pointed out, since 1968 for the school. They did have the shared one back in 2005 that was split. But I think that they're kind of like the other members that split that conference championship. It doesn't count if it's shared. We don't share anything. We want it as all ours.
Definitely. Do you think, Tibbs, that the coaching not the fiasco, but the brouhaha, the circus that's going on, do you think they'll? I mean, Jay said nah, but what do you think?
I think for some programs it would be an issue. I think Napier has them so focused that it's another day at the office and just going to be another time for the Cajuns to kind of shine and roll and show exactly that they are the Sunbelt Conference champions for this year.
Something that I thought that Tyler said that was interesting, Ben Moore, was that Shawn Clark is kind of overlooked because he's an offensive line coach and isn't very flashy. The Georgia State's coached by an offensive line coach that I wouldn't say isn't very flashy. He's actually kind of a flashy guy. He gets out there. Why do you think Shawn Clark isn't getting that sort of buzz as some of these other coaches is?
I think the biggest thing ultimately is there's questions probably. I'm not an athletic director, as you guys know, and don't know what's in AD's brains, but I think ultimately he didn't inherit a program that didn't already have existing expectations. You had multiple crossovers. You had multiple, you had Satterfield left for Louisville. Then you had Eli Drinkowitz there for a year. It wasn't like he took a program that was descending. It was certainly, at a certain level, and he continued to kind of rock and roll with that. So I think that may be part of it. But I think certainly there may be an opportunity. Certainly there in the state. I mean, Duke has an opportunity there to make a phone call. I don't know how attractive that job is on the landscape. I know Virginia Tech got filled today with Brent Pry. They should look, in my view, somebody that's had success that wants to build a culture there, because what is the expectation at Duke? It's probably to make a bowl game, right? In the ACC, it's not going to be competing for championships. This isn't basketball. They should take a hard look, I think, at Shawn Clark, but we'll see if you can pry him from his alma mater at this point.
That's good analysis, because I didn't think of it that way. When Napier took over for Hudspeth, the Cajuns were kind of a team that was in a sort of a pickle. They were sort of in the doldrums. And then you have Jamie Chadwell, who takes over for a team that's very young and hasn't done much. Suddenly they're on the national stage. So both those coaches get kind of all the looks. And you just have good old Shawn Clark kind of doing his job there at Appalachian State, winning titles, winning big football games, and not really getting that buzz that maybe he needs to get.
It's all about the name. Speaking of names, the FunBelt Podcast, we will be shifting from Tuesdays to Sundays beginning this upcoming week, Jeremy.
Why are we doing that? Why exactly, Dusty Thibodeau, are we making this essential change? Please inform our viewers.
Because college basketball happens on any given night, and we are picking Sunday as our break in the week to look back.
People thought that we were just a football podcast. Oh, they were wrong, Dusty Thibodeau. They were so wrong.
Yeah, we have a breakdown of basketball. We're going with baseball. We're doing some softball. South Alabama is in the NCAA regionals this week, playing the U. See, we do it all. Sorry, Jeremy, we can't talk bowling, though. That is not a Sunbelt.
It's not a Sunbelt. We can't talk beach volleyball either. And that's too damn bad, because both those sports are badass sports, and I wish we could talk about them.
And great experiences. I highly recommend, if you haven't been to a beach volleyball match, make the trip, take the time. It is a very fun event.
I bet it's awesome. I bet it's just badass. I do have one more goofball question for you guys that regards the Cajuns and Appalachian State. What ended up being the most disappointing loss? Cajuns versus Texas or Appalachian State versus Miami?
I think the Cajuns versus Texas, because if that game is even week 2, I don't think the Cajuns lose that game.
Interesting. Ben?
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I think the difficult part about it, especially because both teams had expectations to compete in their relative conferences and then just completely fell apart.
Yes.
That's the difficult part about it, right? You look at it and you go, all right, mean, it's the same. It's no different too. I mean, I was live and in person at Jordan-Hare, and you're looking at Georgia State nearly knocking off Auburn, getting a controversial call, and saying, "All right, well, that's at least a top 25 team." Well, they stumble to 6-6, even though they scared the dickens out of their rival, Alabama this past weekend. So it's been a very, very wild season. The traditional powers have been up; they've been down, and I think. We may finally see one more week. We will finally have a Group of 5 team in the college football playoff, boys.
Ooh, it's getting a little bit closer. All right, so we're going to start focusing. Are we focusing on basketball, Tibbs, or are we just transitioning slowly into basketball?
There is never anything that's out of bounds on this show. You ought to know that, Jeremy.
All right, okay. Well, then I will have my notebook open for any topic. We can broach it at any time.
Except for bowling and beach volleyball, apparently.
You can't do those two things. No. And men's soccer.
Promos, parting shots, props. What you got, Jeremy?
Well, I will be, this week, I will be tabulating all the numbers and crunching all the data to see who won the FunBelt Sheriff of the Year Award, the first annual FunBelt Sheriff of the Year Award, which comes with a golden badge for the athletic director whose football team exhibited the sort of lay down the law for the Sun Belt this year. Not necessarily the team that wins the Sun Belt, but for the one that represents the Sun Belt in a way that is admirable and sets the bar. So I'll be looking for that this week. On Saturday night before the game, it will be announced.
Ben, what you got?
It's first official visit weekend of December. Tomorrow is December the 1st. So that means here comes 2 weeks from signing day, the early signing period at least. Also transferring out. The Panthers should be super active in the transfer portal. They're talking to several guys already. We have the juice there, and a certain ACC program is shedding many a player over there on North Avenue, Georgia Tech, and there may be some guys that stick around the city of Atlanta to hang around the 404 and not be not traverse somewhere else. So going to be very interesting covering recruiting. As you guys know, it never ever stops. Every single day there seems to be something. You look up and there's 100 more kids in the transfer portal. So a lot of kids from the Metro Atlanta area that could potentially come back. And we've been talking to quite a few that are interested in coming back home or staying home in that scenario. So we'll have it all covered at panthertalk.com. And that's where we're at. Of course, basketball, they were in the news today with a cancellation due to COVID. Not something you want to hear in the year of our Lord 2021. But I am making a trip down to Georgia State's rival, if you can believe that, the Mercer Bears. A few years ago, they knocked off Duke in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
The Panthers and Bears have locked up more than any other program. They've been playing basketball against each other, waging hardcore war since the 1960s. So it'll be fun to get down there. I believe it's the 109th matchup between the two. I have to double check my notes, but they've met a lot, and should be fun for the Panthers and the Bears. Little interstate battle there for the folks from the down in Macon.
Ben, when is early signing day? When is that day?
It is December the 15th. So basically, what used to be the previous junior college signing period. You had that Wednesday basically in December, and then went and closed that Friday, and then basically went kind of a dead period as the Christmas holiday would ensue there shortly thereafter. But now more than any that I've seen really in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been the primary signing period. Gone are the days of the first Wednesday in February, which used to be kind of a national holiday to those who cover recruiting.
It was a national holiday for me. I loved it.
And most coaches did. And that's what the one thing that I've continued to kind of see too is it's almost pulled away from that signing day, whether it's a, big, huge event, obviously in February, because the majority of the guys are already signed. So many early enrollees, even at the group of 5 level, and the Sunbelt level, you have guys who are already there in January, kids that are enrolling early. Of course, with the transfer portal, as we continue to talk about, and we'll continue to talk about on podcasts moving forward, with so many guys moving all around. I know Dusty's seen guys at, ULM. I know, Jeremy, you've seen it too at A-State, guys on both sides of the ball that, are looking to ply their trade elsewhere. So guys that have opportunity, guys that have film, and some guys that may not fit in the plans. And that's kind of what is interesting. I had a conversation with a guy today, basically was looking at 4th string on the depth chart, and he's done with football, already has his degree. So, good luck. And I think, a lot of these kids are going to realize they have to go pro in something else other than football if they have their degree already.
Absolutely.
Just like the rest of us.
Dusty,
Down on the bayou.
What do you have to promote?
Down on the bayou.
Yeah.
Warhawks are looking for a new offensive coordinator.
A
new director of football operations, both of which are headed to the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State, soon to be of Conference USA, as they look to transition up. Rich Rod making the move over, likely taking his son Rhett Rod with him to be a quarterback GA/assistant. So the Warhawks are looking for that. And then there's always the rumors of defensive coordinator Zach Alley being a front runner for the South Florida job. So could be looking for new coordinators on both sides of the ball, just when you think things are kind of turning around. On the recruiting front, it's rough going on the Bayou. They only have 4 confirmed spots for 2022 after they backwards and forwards counted kids from last year. And of course, the portal is on fire as people are trying to get in the boat and get off the Bayou. A couple people trying to get on the Bayou as well. Warhawks.
Is Boogie Knight going? Boogie Knight's staying, right?
Boogie Knight is a Warhawk for another year.
Whew, thank God.
Only because he said he wants to appear on the podcast again.
Okay. At least we cemented that for you.
Yes. Other than that, basketball 2-4 over the weekend. Almost had a good win at SMU, but couldn't quite pull it out. Looking for the season sweep of Northwestern State later this week, and just rocking and rolling, trying to figure out what's going on with the portal as well as recruiting. All of that on warhawkreport.com.
Yeah, you know what? I've been watching the portal. I've been watching it fill up, and it fills me with a sense of a little bit of excitement because there is some, who can we get from the portal? But also like a little bit of sadness. I just feel like a lot of these kids are just thinking that there's just going to be all this opportunity opening up for them, and it's just not going to be there.
No, and I think it's one of those, you got to be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. Mm-hmm. When you might be in Monroe, in Lafayette, in Jonesboro, or whatever, and then you wind up in Monticello. I mean, it's cool to be a boll weevil and all, but you definitely sacrifice being able to go to the Chick-fil-A whenever you wanted to.
I will say this: the people that for Arkansas State, it's filling up in the portal, but the people who entered it very early, they've had nothing come their way, and I root for those guys. I want them to find new homes. But at the same time, I feel like if you're in the transfer portal, you already have a mark against you. People are looking at you and go, "This guy can't stick it out with a team." So I advise anybody who's thinking about getting into the portal, make sure you have some options. Make sure you have some buzz around you before you jump into that portal. And that's just all the advice I got for you.
You just talked me out of it, Jeremy. I'm not going to join the portal.
I dipped my toe in the portal and I lost a toe. So I got 9 toes, and I'm going to have to live that way.
So you can only count to 19?
Yeah.
We're Dusty Thibodeau with Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper, Hal Razor, Ben Moore, PantherTalk.com. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you again on Sunday. We recap this year's season and the Sunbelt Conference Championship game that's happening Saturday, 2:30 at ULL's Cajun Field.